Look, I know that every story that we get is now connected in some way, but I'm going to say I really didn't want a Luke and Laura story. They are my least favorite aspect of the Shawnaverse, but Shauna gave us one and it was perfect. So let's talk about it. I've got my notes and a couple of things that I wanted to talk about before we even get there. Hey, my name is Shawna A. I'm a licensed clinical mental health counselor supervisor, and I work specifically with mental health therapists and other helping professionals who are innovative and service driven in helping them develop their practices beyond the couch. From time to time, I love to give commentary on the Shawnaverse, which is exactly what I'm doing here today. We're talking about Luke and Laura, their background, a little bit of Shawnaverse background, and we are going to take it from there. Now, I did take some notes, but not a whole bunch of notes. It's just this one card, and the rest of it we're going to kind of wing. Let's see how this goes. Hey, I think I should name this commentary series. Let me know what you think the commentary series should be called. Y'all just go ahead and drop me some of your thoughts in the comments and let's take it from here. So, first things first, before we go that deep into the Luke and Laura lore, I have to say that I recognize that there are some aspects of this relationship that is deeply uncomfortable for people to watch. Some of it may seem triggering, overwhelming. And if you are one of those people that is activated by this commentary, I'm going to let you know that it's probably not the place for you to be hanging out, especially in the comment section. If that's you, I encourage you to do your work outside of this post. Because remember, I'm a therapist, I'm not your therapist. And if you're one of my peeps, remember, you see me in these interweb streets, you don't know me. Let's go. As we talk about Luke and Laura, I think we have to talk about the elephant in the room, which is their relationship. At least, their relationship is quite toxic. At the most, we might even address their relationship as abusive. Now, I think that when it comes to these kinds of things, I'm not comfortable giving it any kind of labels. And until we get further notice from Shauna, I'm just not quite there in being able to say, yes, this is that. And what I will say is, when it comes to these situations, when we're talking about all relationships, I think that it exists on a bit of a spectrum. We know that what the far end of the spectrum looks like and how bad that truly is. But on the other end of the spectrum, when we talk about toxicity, we also have an idea what many of those situations look like. And I find that Luke and Laura's situation is somewhere in the middle of all of that. And I know that some people will be upset about that and not trying to deny what could be happening to Laura. I also don't want to put things there that the writer has not given to us yet, which is along the same lines of why I do not diagnose the characters in the Shawnaverse. The other part of that is when I actually start labeling things or when I say things definitively, I often get tons of pushback around that because everybody has their own feelings and interpretations of what they put into this. So, the way that I look at Luke and Laura's situation is that it's incredibly complicated, very toxic. And I think that there is something that is going on in there that is definitely not good for Laura. But I will say, even though we got this background episode, many people were expressing that they wish to see Luke and Laura split up. And what we do know from the lore is that Luke and Laura remain together. They remain together past the stage where their children are. Luke and Laura have at least two children, as far as we know. She's pregnant with her second child. And in a Father's Day episode, Luke comes out and he's like, hey, where are the kids? The kids are outside riding bikes. And that lets me know if the kids are old enough to be outside, unsupervised by their parents riding bikes, that they remain together for some time, past toddler and early childhood. These kids are probably, at least one of them, I would say, is 10 years old, but old enough for Laura and Luke to be comfortable that both of them are outside without their attention on them. So we know that Laura remains in this situation for a while just from the lore altogether. Now, I'm going to say a thing and it's going to be upsetting to people. I have said that I don't think that Laura was a good friend to Shawna. And I think that Laura was quite toxic to Shawna, especially in their last meeting. And here, one of the things that really stands out to me is how quickly Laura forgets about Shawna, even in the midst of learning some possibly great news, in order to pursue her situation with Luke. For example, when Laura says, "Hey, go to the car. I'll meet you there. It's not going to be too long." And then Shawna comes back in with her own food and she said, "You've been in here talking to this man for 40 minutes." That is a total disregard of your friend, knowing that your friend who could possibly be pregnant is outside waiting for you to come and you never come. The other thing that I thought was quite interesting was when Shauna was really adamant that she did not want Luke back here. And she's like, "There's people's addresses. You really shouldn't be back here." And Laura is like, "It's okay." And she bypasses Shauna to have Luke stay around a little bit longer. Now, we do know that Laura initially gave Luke a wrong phone number, but she ends up going on a date with him. She ends up clearly marrying him. And I think the big thing about this episode that I found to be really interesting is Shauna's level of discernment and Laura's lack of discernment. If you noticed, Shauna right away had pegged that Luke was cocky, that she did not enjoy Luke, and that he was pushy and someone who was just yuck in Shauna's opinion. Now, I thought this was really interesting because what we know about Shauna seems to be quite people pleasing, but she really had Luke pegged from the very beginning. It was Laura who was kind of like, not that big of a deal, who let Luke in. And it brings back the question of why. What was it about Luke that Laura was able to let her guard down? She noticed that he was cocky and she still continued anyway. And when we look at the Luke and Laura portions of the episode and the kind of person that Luke is, it's also very interesting how quickly Laura was able to look past that and not decode that for herself. Was she so desperate to be in a relationship at that point in time that she looked past that cockiness? Or did she just not see it as that much of a big deal in the way that Shauna did? I also thought that it was really interesting of how quick Laura was able to bypass her good friend in order to invite this guy into her life, seeing some of the signs already there. Now, was his cockiness red flag material? For Shauna, yes. But for Laura, perhaps those were yellow flags. But at what point do those yellow flags become red flags? Because she knew from the beginning that he was cocky. She said it herself, but she continued to pursue this relationship, or she continued to allow for this relationship to go on, even bypassing her friend. Now, when we get to the end of the episode, I think my favorite part was Shauna calling back Laura, because what she offered Laura wasn't full blown in our lives friendship again. I'm not sure if Shauna's really going to meet Laura for coffee, but what she offered her was a listening ear, which may not be full access to Shauna, but it is still if you need help, I am willing to hear you out and try and see how we can get you help. But you have to ask for it first, and you have to say that this is what you want. I don't know if we'll see episodes of Shauna and Laura in the future, and I don't know that their friendship will be the same. But Shauna did give Laura space to have an out. Now, a couple of weeks ago, when I was talking about Luke and Laura after the coffee date with Shauna, I said Laura seems to be on the same page with Luke and not so great of a person. And looking at this episode, I can also see how Laura wasn't that great of a friend to Shauna when it came to this guy. And I think that was an important telling. I also think that when we saw Shauna say, "I cannot watch this continue to happen to you. I don't like the way that this person treats you," and she stopped talking to Laura for a moment, I think that was even too much for Shauna. Hence why she called her back to say, "I will be there for you. If you need to call anytime." But I think that Shawna was also giving some boundaries and saying, maybe I don't have to be this person's friend, but I can keep the phone line open if they are wanting to call. And I think that's the part of the storyline that makes sense now. Because remember before I questioned, why did Shauna, with everybody else getting all of the chances that they've gotten, Barb getting multiple chances, Jennifer getting multiple chances, seeing the arc of Shauna and Jennifer's relationship, they're at the point where they're saying, I love you. Jennifer is fully accounted for how she has treated Shauna, how she's looked at Shauna, and all of that. To have those instances where she can completely turn around, I think that what Laura said to her and what she was implying to her didn't seem to me like something that Shauna's character would completely cut a person's out. And I think that Shauna kind of recognized that in herself as well. That's what we saw at the end of this episode, was Shauna kind of saying, like, I don't really cut people out because I don't like enemies. I don't like keeping enemies. I don't like the idea of having enemies. So her and Laura not being friends, or her and Laura not having an open line some way, somehow, must feel like an enemy to Shauna. She doesn't like that. So she clears the air and gives her an opening, but perhaps not a full friendship. Now, like I said, I would rather watch the saga between Ty and Julie than watch Luke and Laura, but I think that Shauna gave us an excellent episode with a complicated and hard topic. Now's your turn. Let me know what you thought about the episode, what stood out to you. And of course, remember, if you are feeling activated, the commentary is not where you need to be. Let me also know what you think about a name so that I can name this series. And until next time, I'll see y'all soon.